Hello and welcome again to High Desert Home and Garden. Today we're back down to Ford problems. The old 7.3, the last video I posted, if anybody noticed, was a little hard to start. So I did my troubleshooting and came up with that I actually have bad connectors, and also the connectors are bad in the valve cover harness, which is right here. This is your injector and glow plug harness. So now I'm kind of notorious for putting things off a little bit, but anyway, you can see here I have got this connector tied down with, well, yeah, they're bread ties basically, and you know that's not good. I had a problem there. It actually arced out and shorted out the high voltage wire to the injectors, but I got that fixed up and then held it back together with that until I got all the parts together to do this job the right way. So anyway, tools required, pretty simple: a voltmeter, a ratchet with a 13mm socket and a short extension, a 13mm wrench, and you just never know, you might need a pair of side cutters. Also, over here we're going to need a pair of wire strippers, and I'm going to use this style of connector, which is actually, that silver slug in there is solder. So when you heat this up and the heat shrink melts and shrinks down, the solder melts into the wire. That's the best and fastest way to make a solid connection that I know of. I'm getting kind of tired of chasing electrical problems on this thing. So let me get some stuff pulled apart here, and I'll show you kind of along the way as I go through this process. Thanks. Alright, we're back. So, as you can see, I've got the valve cover off. I disconnected all of the injector connectors and glow plug connectors off of all 4 cylinders on this side. So, pretty easy from this point on, you just pick it out of there. I'll show you what problem I have. Get my big fingers out of the way so you can see something. See this connector here? That's your glow plug pin on that connector. Okay, it's pretty burnt off, as you can see. And then this one, you can see there's the rest of the connector down inside of that one. So that's a problem. I've got at least 2 that aren't working on this side, and I didn't once I found that, I didn't bother pulling the valve cover to see if my glow plugs were good or not. So we're going to do that now. Set up here to do that. Enjoy the view of the alternator. So we take our voltmeter, connect it to the positive lead on the battery, to the positive terminal on the battery, and set it here. Ooh, if I don't fall down first. Okay, so let's see here. Can you see? Yes, you can. There's your glow plug right here behind the push rod. So I've got my meter set up to continuity. If it tones, and we touch that, which it's not toning, so let's go to ohms and see what it does. Okay, so that one's good. That one's good. That one's good. And that one's good. Another way to do this, if you don't have a meter, you can use a test light and do the same thing. Connect your ground lead on your test light directly to the positive on the battery and just touch each glow plug in turn. If your light lights, or in my case, as I don't actually have a test light, I don't believe in such things. If your meter or test light reads 12 volts, reads battery voltage right there, your glow plugs are good. So let's get this thing up out of here, which is kind of a trick apparently. And there it is. Now, just to point out a couple of the subtle differences here. Get hold of this thing. This is the old style injector connector. Okay. And this is the new style connector here. Nothing different other than this little clip that actually holds it plugged into the injector. And I actually prefer this style anyway over those, because if you have to change an injector, those break off most of the time. Like this one here. That's, you know, one of the things. This has been in there. I would say this is OE, and my glow plugs are still original equipment also. You know, that's one of the hazards of having old stuff, I guess. But these little crappy plastic clips like this, they'll break. It don't matter, new or old. But yeah. So anyway, we're gonna wipe down our mating surface in there and get the new gasket set in and connected. And we'll get the valve cover back on it, because I want to get the valve cover back on it before I start messing with these, replacing these connectors, so that I don't knock a bunch of stuff down in the engine, which is probably, you know, that's a big thing. Try and keep everything clean when you're working on it. Anyway, back in a bit with a little more. Okay, so a couple quick notes here that I forgot to mention. You can see my engine oil dipstick there, and I forgot to make note and tell you about having to take this bolt here out and then remove this bracket from your valve cover bolts. These are stud type bolts down here, so you just take one nut off of each one of these two, and then this bolt here, this comes off so you can get it out of the way. Otherwise you can't take your valve cover off. Note 2, when I put my valve covers back on, I use a 1/4 inch ratchet so I do not over tighten them. 2 reasons for that on these. Number 1 is your standard reasoning that if you over tighten, you bend the valve cover and then it'll leak. The other reason, and probably the most important thing, is that you have wires that go through here. 5 nice little wires, and if you over tighten this bolt and this bolt, this bolt, this bolt, you can crush that stuff, and then you'll be waiting another week, in my particular case, for another set of valve cover gaskets. Not much fun. So anyway, as you can see here, we've got our valve cover back in. Everything's in, everything's bolted down. Like I said, I used 1/4 inch ratchet with a 13 mil socket to tighten everything back in. Just an insurance policy. Next step in the process, we need this harness. and this piece of harness. Get them up here where we can work on them. Now, I'm going to have to unwrap all this stuff, and then we'll start replacing these. As you can see, I've had several issues with this one over time, and kind of half did the job, but we're going to fix that today. So, let me get to unwrapping this stuff, and we will start replacing this connector right here. Okay, here we are, we're back again. As you can see here, I was about to have problems. You can see I have bare wires here. This one in the center of this connector is your 90 volt DC common power that runs your injectors. This one is a ground for one injector, and this is a ground for another injector. This thing actually grounds your injector to make it fire. It has power all the time when the key is on. Now this is 90 volts because of the injector driver module, which is this little unit right here. Okay, it increases power from battery voltage 12 volts and jumps it up to 90 volts by the time it gets over here. It comes out of that module at 90 volts, and then that module also grounds your injector and makes it fire. So, also interesting to note on this is a shielding wire that wraps around all three of your injector wires. And then this piece of tin foil here wraps around all three of them also. This is to protect them from getting contacted to the two power wires. This one and this one here, which are 12 volt power to your glow plugs. Now your glow plugs don't have a ground, they are ground. That is what they do. They create a short to ground, which heats up the bulb on the end of the glow plug. That in turn heats up the air in the combustion chamber and makes it start easier. So now I'm going to do this one wire at a time, because that's just lots easier than trying to do all of them at once. And then I will demonstrate how to use my connectors that I have purchased. Let's see if I can do this while you guys watch. Now, as I was saying, these things have solder built in, so all you gotta do is stick it over your wire like so, and then stick the other wire in beside it. Make sure that they don't Heat her up. And I messed that one up. That's okay though. We have more of them. Camera's on. Huh? Camera's on. Try again here. Okay, so now I got one to take actually. So that's pretty much it. That is our soldered together 90-volt wire. Pretty easy to do once you get the hang of it. I think I should probably get a smaller torch, but I don't have one of those, so we're just going to have to play this one by ear. Well, anyway, so now I get to do the rest of them. Now, the way I'm going to do this is I'm going to do the center 3 first, and then we'll get those wrapped up back with the aluminum foil, and then the shield wire back around them also. The shield wire goes first, then the aluminum foil. And do the other connector for this side, do the other side, maybe. We'll see. I don't know if I'm going to do that one yet or not. I don't have any real issues with that one. So we'll probably just keep this other valve cover gasket for a time when I need it. Anyway, back to work for me. We'll talk to you guys later.